You're asleep beside the dying embers of a fire, somewhere in a limestone cave in Ice Age Europe, 40,000 years ago. Something shifts at the edge of the dark. You try to sit up. You can't. Your chest won't move. Your voice won't come. And you are certain, not guessing, certain that someone is standing over you, watching. Then it's gone. You gasp back into your body, heart slamming, and the cave is empty. It always was. But you don't fully believe that. Not for a long time. 40,000 years later, you can have this exact same experience on a memory foam mattress with a phone charging 6 inches from your head. Neuroscientists have a clinical name for it now. Ancient humans didn't. They had a fire that had gone out, a body that wouldn't move, and a presence they could feel but not see, with no science available to explain any of it away. So how did a species with no concept of biology, sleep cycles, or brain chemistry look at that experience and conclude, independently, across nearly every continent on Earth, that the dead don't fully leave? Why did ancient humans start believing in ghosts? Start with the oldest hard evidence of this belief, and it's older than most people assume. In Kafze Cave in Israel, archaeologists excavating burials first uncovered in the 1930s found skeletons deliberately laid out and covered in red ochre pigment, one of them a child buried with deer antlers pressed into its arms. In 1988, physicist Hélène Valadas used thermoluminescence dating on burnt flint from the site and placed the burials at roughly 92,000 years old, tens of thousands of years before writing, before agriculture, before anything resembling a city. Ochre doesn't preserve a body. It doesn't feed a family. It does nothing practical at all. Painting a corpse red and posing antlers in its hands is a message, not a task, and a species doesn't send messages to something it believes is finished. 92,000 years ago, someone already thought the dead were still, in some sense, an audience. So that's the body. But what about the feeling? That opening scene, the frozen chest, the sense of someone in the room, isn't folklore. It's physiology, and it's been measured. In 1999, psychologist J. Alan Chain and colleagues at the University of Waterloo surveyed thousands of people about sleep paralysis and found that roughly half of them reported the exact same detail, unprompted, a distinct sensed presence in the room, often described as malevolent, often described as standing at the foot of the bed or pressing down on the chest. The brain, caught between REM sleep and waking, keeps dreaming even after the eyes open, and it fills the dark room with a source for that dread because a feeling that strong, your brain reasons, has to be pointed at something. It rarely lands on nothing. It lands on someone. Everyone assumes ghost belief started as a story people told to make sense of death. The truth is, it may have started as a diagnosis. Nobody had bodies producing a terrifying, universal experience millennia before anyone had the vocabulary of neuroscience to call it anything other than a visitor. The strangest part isn't that any one culture believed this, it's that essentially all of them did, independently, without contact. In 1871, anthropologist Edward Burnett Tylor published Primitive Culture in London, cataloging spirit and soul belief across dozens of unrelated societies he had studied, from Pacific Islanders to Siberian tribes to indigenous groups across the Americas. He coined a name for the pattern, animism, the idea that human, animal, and object alike carry an inner spirit that can outlast the body. Tylor wasn't cataloging coincidence. He was cataloging a species-wide default. Cultures separated by oceans, with no shared language and no shared contact, kept arriving at the same conclusion about death on their own, which means whatever produced it wasn't a story someone told. It was something closer to a shared piece of human hardware. So if it's hardware, where does it come from? Everyone assumes belief in ghosts is a failure of reasoning, primitive people getting the science wrong. The truth is closer to the opposite. It may be a byproduct of a reasoning system that was working exactly as designed. In 2004, cognitive scientist Justin Barrett, then at Oxford's Center for Anthropology and Mind, laid out a theory he called the Hyperactive Agency Detection Device, or HAD. The logic is brutally simple. A rustle in the grass is either wind, which costs nothing to ignore, or a predator, which costs your life to miss. Natural selection doesn't reward accuracy in that trade. It rewards paranoia. Assume an agent is there 9 times out of 10 when it's just wind. and you waste a little adrenaline. Assume it's nothing the one time it's a leopard, and you don't get to pass on your genes. That same wiring that scans a dark tree line for a predator doesn't switch off in an empty room, or beside a fresh grave, or in the half-second after waking with your chest frozen. It fires anyway. It just doesn't have a leopard to point at, so it finds a ghost instead. So which one actually built the belief? The graves, the sleep paralysis, the cross-cultural pattern, or the predator instinct wired into the brain? The honest answer is that it was never just one of them. It was all four, running at once, reinforcing each other for tens of thousands of years, until a species that felt presences buried its dead like they could still be offended, and overdetected danger in every shadow, arrived at the same practical conclusion on every continent it settled. Better to assume the dead are still watching than to find out you were wrong. Ghosts were never really about the afterlife. They were a survival instinct that outlived the threat it was built for and never got the memo to stop. Go back to that cave, 40,000 years ago, to the fire that's gone out and the shape you were sure was standing over you. Nobody there had a word for sleep paralysis, or thermoluminescence dating, or hyperactive agency detection. They just had the feeling, and the feeling was enough to make them paint a body red, bury it with antlers, and whisper about it for the rest of their lives. You've inherited the exact same wiring, minus the leopards it was built to catch. So the next time you wake up certain something is standing in your room, understand what you're actually feeling, not a ghost. 100,000 years of caution, still checking the dark for something that hasn't been there in a very long time. You wake up frozen, certain someone is in the room with you, and then it's gone, and you're alone, and you're not sure you believe that. That exact sensation may be the oldest fear humans have ever tried to explain, and the evidence for how we started explaining it stretches back almost 100,000 years.